Welcome to the Parks, Recreation, Open Space Commission meeting for December 14th. Let's call to order and let's do the roll call, please.
Yes. Commissioner Abbott.
Here.
Commissioner Chang Frake.
Here.
Commissioner Chin.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Here.
And Commissioner Martin OG is absent tonight. Chair Kent.
Here. Thank you. We'll do the Land Acknowledgement Act. The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Yushan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Albany tribe. We thank them for their contributions which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Everyone review the minutes, and can we do a call on anyone? I guess anyone want to any comments on the minutes or approval?
I'm happy to move that we approve the minutes from the November meeting.
Second that?
Okay. Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frake.
Yes.
Commissioner Chin.
Yes.
Commissioner Martin.
Yes.
Commissioner Sandberg.
Yes.
And Chair Kent.
Yes. Item 3, public comment for persons desiring to address the advisory body on an item that is not on the agenda. Please note that each speaker's time is limited to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the Commission's ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items are normally referred to staff for comment to a future agenda. Is there any public wishing to make a comment? Anyone on?
We do have a hand raised online.
Yay.
Okay, go ahead, Jeremiah.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. That was a great reading of the land acknowledgement statement. I was just wondering what this committee and commission is doing to, striving to repay the debt and continuing to establish relationships and the ongoing, you heard it. It was read about a minute ago. So what are some ideas? So my idea is to maybe rename a park, instead of Albany Hill, Albany Hill, right? I mean, that's respectful. You're changing the name. You're making efforts to do things right. So yeah, that's just my suggestion there. We got to do something for our parks to acknowledge the Albany's and make the name visible in the parks. So for everybody to see, we're not just hiding this. Another thing is the dog park at Memorial Field. The hours there just don't make sense. It would be nice if you would extend the hours, at least maybe open up, was it before 11 o'clock in the morning? I mean, it's not even really open in the morning. It pretty much opens almost in the afternoon. So what, nobody can walk their dog before they go to work in the morning? I mean, we gotta have some common sense here. People go to work, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning. In the morning, you want to be able to let your dogs run around, get that energy out. Maybe 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I'm just saying, just extend the hours. I mean, it's not too difficult, right? Just change the hours on the lock. So that would be really nice. That would let more people use it. it looks in really bad condition right now. I don't know what the heck happened to it. But yeah, so anyway. Yeah, so yeah, we could rename a park Ohlone. I mean, we have Ohlone Greenway, which is great. That's already there. So those are just my positive suggestions. And you know, just to keep things going. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the only public comment?
Yes, that's the only person who had their hand raised.
Okay. Move on to 4, announcements. Do any commissioners have any announcements they would like to share?
No commissioner announcements?
Yeah, I had one. I went on the December 3rd walk on Albany Hill with Margot from the city staff, and also the fire chief was there, and the consultants involved with Hill, and the butterfly guy, and probably some people I'm forgetting. And it seemed like it was very well attended, and we stopped at various locations and looked at some of the soil and the cutbacks and talked about the roots of the trees and erosion and with and without the trees, and then looked at the butterflies that were there and what the plans were, and it seemed like, again, I thought it was well attended and that the public had a chance to ask a lot of questions and get some answers. And I was grateful that the city had organized that.
Okay. I do have a few
And
announcements.
also Commissioner, what's your last name?
Sandberg.
Oh, Sandberg was also there, yeah.
I'll share a brief announcement. I mean, I guess it's sort of a BART policy update, but it involves bikes, which is recreational activity that we touch on. I've been following I learned recently that bikes will now be allowed on the escalator as of January 1st on BART. And so I think that's an important connection. You know, maybe it'll change if you ride on the Ohlone Greenway to get over to BART. And there's going to be a lot of instructions there and guidance on how to, you know, encouraging you to only do it if you feel safe, right, to do it because of obviously the strength it requires. And they're continuing to look at ways to add like the railing, if you've seen it at like 19th BART station, to kind of push your bike up the BART. So yeah, maybe, you know, from a recreation perspective, even you can go into the city, take your bike, have a good day. So yeah, that's a policy change there.
Cool. 2 announcements. My first announcement is going to be about field closures. The City of Albany closes its fields annually to give the grass time to rest and rejuvenate. This is a critical step in the city's maintenance plan to ensure the fields are properly maintained due to the heavy wear and tear they endure. FYI, the opening dates are subject to change. Right now, Memorial Field, Memorial Dog Park, and Ocean View Field are closed with a tentative date of February 2024 as reopening. The fields at Memorial Park Lawn and the lawn at Terrace Park are also closed. Those are closed to allow the grass to recover and absorb the compost application that we are going to install. And just a side note, the tennis posts at the lower court of Terrace Park have been officially replaced. We are working with the tennis net. They are supposed to deliver the crank to make sure the net stays taut, and hopefully that'll arrive shortly. Then my other announcement will be about the handrail from the Eagle Scout project. I have some pictures that were presented from the project. So here we have a before and after picture of the handrail. As you can see on the left-hand side, there was no handrail. This is what the Eagle Scout did on the right side. So this is going to be, the next photo is from the picture at the top of the farthest north end of Jackson Street. You can see how the rail comes together. It's made with all the milled eucalyptus posts. Here we have pictures of the Eagle Scout and Margot consulting and working. And lastly, this is what the finished project actually looks like, the full scope. So that will conclude my announcements.
I have one announcement. I also attended some of those events on Albany Hill. I went to the bird walk, I guess we'd call, on Saturday morning, December 2nd, with Ralph Pericoli. He's a certified master birder. It was quite amazing. Within the first 100 feet of walk, we saw 14 species right up against between the hill and Cerrito Creek. It was just, we didn't go very far, but there was all kinds of activities. So I learned a lot. I'm glad I went. Thank you for that. Any more announcements? Great. Let's move on to presentations. 5.1, Fair Play in Community Sports, AB 2404.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. My name is Joy White. I'm a Recreation Supervisor, and I'm here to talk to you today about the City of Albany AB 2404. It's Assembly Bill 2404. The Fair Play in Community Sports is a California law prohibiting gender discrimination in community youth sports. The law was passed in 2004 and has been in effect since 2005. The Fair Play Act requires that girls be provided opportunities for participation in community sports programs that are equal both in quality and scope to those provided to boys, including youth sports programs that run by Recreation Department and third-party programs that use city facilities. AB 2404 affects in Albany. In the spring of 2016, our department asked field users to disclose participation numbers by gender on their field rental applications. Thereafter, the department collected data to track efforts. On November 20th, 2017, the Albany City Council approved Resolution Number 2017-85, the Fair Play Act, AB 2404, eligibility for field use, participation assessment, and field allocation policies. Our department has continued improving participation numbers and increasing participation opportunities for girls by inviting girls' sports to request more field use. We have added the AB 2404 participation application to tennis sports teams' tennis court rental applications, encouraging existing third-party users to allocate more field time, tennis court time to girls' teams in the program. Today's presentation will focus on the AB 2404 participation numbers by gender based on field and tennis court data collected from 2022 to fall 2023. Here is the graph for spring 2022 data. The females are in blue and the males are in green. This data shows, from what you can see on the chart, is that our Albany High School baseball team has predominantly all boys. It's the baseball team. But on the other hand, we also rent the field to the Evolution Girls Baseball, where it's just girls. An organization we work with is Albany Berkeley Soccer Club, and they have a high rate of girls and males. This data comes from fall 2022, which pretty much shows how, with the girls' tennis teams from both St. Mary's and Albany, increase the girls' numbers, but also as well as Albany Berkeley Soccer Club having more girls who participate in the fall versus what they did in the spring. The data you see here shows the total of the whole year for 2022, which talks about, it has the boys at 105 participants and the girls are at 786. So the discrepancy isn't too large, so they're provided equal amount of time. Here's the chart for spring 2023 data. As we saw before, Albany High School has predominantly boys. And a good thing to point out too is the East Bay Cyclones. They're a predominantly boys baseball team, but they do have a girls team who we rent to, which is the East Bay Oaks. And again, Albany Berkeley Soccer is our biggest co-ed partnership. From fall 2023, as before with Albany Berkeley Soccer, the girls participate more in soccer with them in the fall than they do in the spring. Here are the total number from 2023 for males and females who participated in our activities that were hosted on the city facilities. Our next steps is to continue to invite girls' sports programs to request more field use, continue to find new co-ed or girls' sports programs, continue to work with existing third-party field users to allocate more field time to girls' teams in their programs, and continue to create community events and programs that will increase athletic opportunity for girls in Albany. This time, I'll take any questions.
I had one question. Thanks for compiling that and sharing that. One is there's a bar graph that that shows total data for, it says 2023 and 2022. There's two different slides, and they have the huge green block and the huge blue block. Mm-hmm. The one for this year, it just looks like almost even parity there, but the numbers are a lot smaller than the 2022 data. Is that because it's about 500 fewer, what it seems to say is that there's 500 fewer, is this youth or is this all ages?
It's all youth. It's only youth.
It's only youth. So it seems to be showing that there's about 500 fewer youth this year using our fields than there were last year. But is that because the year isn't over, or do you have any idea why that is?
I do not have any idea why that is. We just collect the data from our users who fill out their applications. So it's either part of their data that's different from last year to this year.
Okay, because it's about 1,300 that used our facilities this year and about 1,800 that used them last year. So that's something that the Recreation Department might reflect on and try to see why was there a drop of, I don't know, 30% or whatever it was in, is it just the way the numbers are being counted, or are there some groups that dropped off? And is there a way to, is this a good number, or is this, to reflect on it?
I can definitely look into that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm kind of trying to quickly look at what team lost people, like, as you're saying, you're not really doing that recruitment of students directly, right? It's through it's kind of via these other companies and third-party users, like you said. So, yeah, I was wondering, and so this is obviously, I haven't signed up for a youth sport in a long time, so this is obviously an optional question on their form, right? Like these gender questions?
So it's a mandatory application you have to fill out to submit your when you submit your application, it's a mandatory piece that has to be filled out. In order to get field, we require it for our
Oh, sure, but then I guess you count the kids. Mm-hmm. That's not that complicated, maybe. Maybe it could be more complicated. Okay, so that's kind of obvious. Even if the kid doesn't self-report, the sports are,
yes.
Teams are identifying the children. And then I was wondering, well, yeah, I'm excited about the efforts to encourage and hope that we get to learn more about that over time and help promote that. And, I remember my last question, and feel free to so the Berkeley Soccer Club, is that group that came and commented one time saying they were kind of at risk of being displaced from University Village? So and we were saying we would follow up with them, and so are we gonna maybe lose them in the city as a whole?
So, yes, that is the same group that came in and said that they're renegotiating what's happening at UC Village. My sense is they will utilize more of our fields to the extent that they're available.
Okay.
And I did do a quick look, and it seemed like Albany Berkeley Soccer was the big difference in the number of people, and it looks like they might have dropped participants, but we might have gained a couple of groups, so
Okay.
So it's not clear.
it's not clear what's going on, and maybe more groups might be better. I don't know. It might reflect.
Yeah.
This ties into a question I was hoping, I was wondering if you could kind of clarify for the commission how school district resources play into this, because this is just city resources, correct? So it's possible that say in the fall, the boys go on to school teams, whereas the girls stay on the, so that sort of thing.
I don't know, and that's more to the rec, but
Yeah.
I did notice that too, where it seems like girls soccer is more prevalent in the fall, I believe.
Right.
And I don't know how that lines up with high school, other sports that people might be in.
I know, for instance, ABGSL, there's not a lot here, but then they probably think primarily use school district fields.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
I just happen to be friends with some moms with kids in soccer, and I think there might have been some change with some of the soccer leagues. So you could imagine that alone might have just shifted where they play or whatever, anyway. But, because this is substantial change. Did was that reflected in the field usage? Was there less field usage, do you know? Maybe you didn't look at that.
Not to my knowledge, it wasn't less, but I can get those numbers for you.
I'm just curious. I just have a question about, I know that, and thank you so much, and nice to meet you, because great to see you. But I'm just curious, I know that your predecessor, Liam, was doing outreach and things like that, and I'm hoping that some of the outreach that he did kind of carries on, that you don't have to like redo all of that work, that if he reached out and made those relationships, that those are continuing, do you know? Because I know he started this whole effort of tracking and trying to reach out. Do you feel like there's been, if you looked at the groups that did have, do you know if there's just been any continuation over time?
So from what I just know, picking up from where Liam dropped off, a lot of things have changed since the pandemic. So it's either those people stayed aboard, Albany Berkeley Soccer, Albany Little League, East Bay Cyclones, and then some have dropped off.
And so, yeah, so this is just youth. I mean, I'm just, as a mom of, kids in the school system, and Albany school system, I really see the girls having volleyball is the thing that they like to do the most. And like we had like over 100 girls trying to play volleyball for just 7th grade alone. So I know that we're potentially going to get that. I don't know if there's any way to encourage some more volleyball on the fields. I don't know if that's even possible, because I think it's just an indoor thing. But we don't really have any indoor gym space, do we? Really none.
The city does.
The city has none.
Well, but
It doesn't have a gym.
Yeah.
But we are, of course, the city does have, I don't know if they're installed yet, the movable
Right.
volleyball net at the Memorial Park tennis court. Has that been installed?
It has not been installed yet. They're still waiting on
Some
the
parts?
equipment, yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Question, so the soccer, which seems to be a really dynamic one here, how is it reported again? It's self-reported, so they just give you the number of how many
Yes.
kids are? Because it's funny, it's such a huge jump from 22 to 23 in the spring, but the fall numbers are exactly the same.
Yes,
they
they
just-
self-report.
What's that?
They self-report.
Based on the report, right, yeah, I know. And that's, I'm wondering if maybe the reports are being filled out very accurately, or what's going on. It just seems odd, and, but it's hard to, and if they're self-reporting and we're not really trusting the numbers, then it's hard to know how we're succeeding or not. So, just a concern, that's all.
Understand.
I had another question, was the Recreation Department also does its own programming. I think not a lot of it's on the fields, but is some of it on the fields, and would that, or on the play spaces, or like would that be reflected here? 'Cause I'm not seeing any.
We have very minimal usage on the field for our recreation classes. So when we do put them on there, we count the numbers. We
Okay.
will count the numbers in the future, yes.
And then there were also like summer soccer camps and things that I remember that kids used to be able to sign up for through the Albany Recreation Department. Is that kind of thing still happening?
Summer sign up for camps, yes.
Yeah, like that would be using the fields for soccer or whatever the sport is.
Yeah, we're not doing summer, well, in the past, yes, we had summer camps on the sports, and kids would sign up for that as well.
But that didn't happen the last 2 years?
It's a little bit harder to get the number for soccer, or for summer, because those happen after the application process.
What
So we haven't tracked the summer.
So is that like a loophole? So why would the
No,
city not track?
Just in this transition we're working on now, adding the summer into the process.
Oh, okay. So next year we should see those numbers. Okay. All right, I think that's it for me.
Said one more question. I'm not sure you're the one to ask, but back when we were starting out working on this, 2015, 16, I guess, 17, we had the Played Like a Girl events that I think the city put on. Do people remember that? No. But just, are there any plans? I know the pandemic, I'm sure it was just crazy, but now maybe in the coming year, we could look at that. Just, my memory of it is that it was an opportunity for girls to try lots of different things and make connections and then potentially sign up.
So we evaluate our programming each year, so we'll definitely look into it for the future.
I just didn't have any plans. Thanks.
Thank you.
But just one, because we're on this, I feel like it's a great opportunity to talk to you about recreational programming. I know that if you're evaluating and thinking of programs next year, it'd be great to connect with the schools to see what interest they see, just because I would think it's such a natural partnership. Because I'm just thinking of that baseball field, it's just so big and so much space. And I could even see like a volleyball group just putting temporary, volleyball nets for grass play. And just things that we're not doing right now, but because we just think, oh, one sport for that field. I like that the soccer is using those fields, but I'm just thinking if we could, I know it would be a lot if there's not somebody ready and willing to do it, but I'm just thinking if you're thinking of creating recreational programming, I just know there's a huge desire for volleyball, both for the girls and boys, and they just started a boys' high school volleyball, which they didn't have before. Anyway, so I just wanted to put a word in for that. And I think the equipment's pretty cheap just to do like a grass volleyball net. So I would love to see something like that.
Definitely something we can look into.
I have a comment. So I guess I'm kind of thinking of like, what happens is this just like I'm trying to make progress and I hope it goes well on behalf of like when the state created this law, or are there metrics or goals we're trying to achieve, or even consequences for not achieving certain numbers, 50-50, or what are we going for here?
To me, I would assume we're trying to achieve equality, so I can look further into seeing what it is that we are actually doing.
Yeah, probably a place to look would be the city law, or whatever you call that ordinance that was passed in 2016 or something, and then the state law from 2004, and see what guidelines they say, or percentages, or what the differential is within reasonable bounds, and what should happen if it's not.
Okay.
That'd be good to have in the next. Do we get these presentations twice a year, or is that once a year? Or
I think it's an annual
so
presentation.
mandated by state law? I know there's something
I don't know what the mandate,
there. Okay.
this is new to me as well.
Yeah.
Looking at the past, it's been, I think, traditionally an annual. And as we'll talk more about later in the agenda on the status report, I had it programmed out as an annual presentation.
Okay. So there's a way to take a note on, in a year from now, to get that background as well.
Of course.
Thanks.
One more question. Joy, so going back to how they self-report, maybe they're doing it different ways, within their own organization, whether it's they log in everybody that showed up every week, or they just people at the end of it, or the people that register. Is there do you give them guidelines on how to report, or you just like, what is the number? And
So in the application, there's a guideline stating the field they use for Albany versus like their organization or any other
How many kids
location.
are actually-
So anytime they use our field in Albany.
they write down how many kids were there that day? Oh, I see.
Yep.
I see. Okay. Thanks. That's pretty clear, I think. This is a total then of every every time they go out there, they total it up for the spring. So the 400 and some odd is after whatever it is, 12, 15 sessions out there. It adds up to that number. Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public comment?
Oh, yes,
Yeah, thank you. Public comment. Done, let's move on. No,
not so fast.
very important.
fast.
Any public comments? No hands are raised online, and
There we go.
now you can go.
Thank you. Moving on to item 6. Discussions and possible actions of matter related to, 6.1 is Measure 68. Proposition 68, Measure M, funded park projects. So who's presenting that? Andre?
Yeah, we have Andre Sterling, our Parks Project Manager. There he is. Now he's official. We'll be presenting.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Sterling, Project Manager at Public Works. So we want to give you an update on our Prop 68 projects, and our goal this evening is hopefully to have our scope of work approved for all our projects that we're discussing this evening. So we can start with, we're going to be discussing the 3 sites there, Memorial Park, specifically this evening, the dog park improvements. We'll mention the new lighting as well. Ocean View pickleball courts, the conversion project that we have there. Our Pierce Street Park, access and landscape improvements. So we'll start with Ocean View Park. And we can go to our next slide. So that's a rendering or a court concept. So that's our 6-court configuration. So that's 4 permanent pickleball courts that we'll have there. Then we'll have, obviously, a newly, we're going to resurface the whole court area, a new tennis court with 2 pickleball courts striped over the tennis court there. And we can go to our next slide. So this is our project scope. So again, we're going to resurface the entire court area, including the practice area as well. So basically, we're going to start with milling down the court, a leveling course, and then an acrylic coat to finish it. So that'll be 1 full tennis court and 6 pickleball courts. New tennis post and net as well, and permanent pickleball posts and nets for the 4 courts. We're going to have, we'll show this as well in our next slide, but we're going to have a 4-foot chain link fence separating the pickleball courts as well as the courts from the tennis court, new windscreens, new benches for additional seating, padding for the light posts. We're going to trim the vegetation and the trees along the fence line, upgrading our LED or our metal halide lighting to LED lights, and also replacing the drinking fountain at the northeast corner of the site outside of the court area. We can go to the next slide. So just to have some context in the guidelines that that we're following as part of this design, the US AP and IFP official rule book specifies the dimensions for the pickleball court. So that's 20 by 44, and those are fixed dimensions, so we're not adjusting that at all. And that gives us a total playing surface of 30 by 60. And as far as, since we're working with a finite area there, 120 by 120, we did have to make a little bit of an adjustment for our tennis court. So just to address that, and the guideline for that is if there are space limitations and that becomes a factor, and we can't have the 12-foot minimum on the sideline of the tennis court, then we can drop that to a 10-foot minimum space from an obstruction. And that doesn't apply at the net line, just along the sideline there. So our next slide, please. So basically, that's the conversion that we're doing. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. there. That's the 60 by 120. And you see those dimensions there, our guidelines. And this is our layout that will be at Ocean View. So basically, if you look at the dimensions there, if you can see them, they're a little small, but so we have the standard dimensions of the 8 feet at each baseline. Of course, the court's 20 by 44. Then we have, the guideline, the minimum space is 5 feet on each sideline, but we actually adjusted that, and that's based on the feedback that we got from the pickleball community and the comments we got from the last meeting. So we're able to make that adjustment 7 feet on each sideline, and in between the pickleball courts, we have the 8-foot spacing there. We can see the 10-foot space along the sidelines of the tennis courts as well. And what else do we have there? So again, we'll just recap some of the project scope there. One thing we'd like to mention as well is, along with the vegetation that we're going to trim, there's 2 trees there, acacia trees, that are starting to grow into the chain link fence. And that's damaging the fence. The roots are starting to come up in the asphalt as well there, and that's along the south fence. So those are going to be removed. We're replacing, we see the benches there as well. We'll replace the benches for the tennis court, and talking to tennis players, they do want the seating there on both sides of the court. So we're gonna install new benches there, and then 4 benches outside of the court area, and there'll be backless benches, so you can sit facing either way. So if you're in the queue, you can see what's happening on the court as well. Let me see. We're adding the fences as well. The 4-foot fence that's dividing the pickleball court, we're going to have a single gate there at the east side. So if you access the courts from the main gate, you can walk straight across to the south courts there for pickleball. And then the 4-foot fence dividing the pickleball courts and the tennis courts, we have 2 access gates there as well on either side. You can access the lighting controls at night. And we'll have a new windscreen all the way around. So any questions for, I guess, the dimensions? We'll take some at the end as well, but we can go on to the next slide. Yep. That's the existing court. As you know, we see the vegetation there growing. That's going to be removed, as well as the acacia trees along that outside the court area, along the south fence. You can see the court there, how it's breaking apart. All that's going to get resurfaced. So here's, on the next slide, you can see what's going to be replaced there. The 4 pickleball courts. We see we have the 7-foot clearance off of the fence, and that gives us a 4-foot clearance between the pole there and our pickleball post, net post. We have our 4-foot fence and gate to give you access there, and then you can see the 8-foot dimension between the courts as well to allow safe play. Based on comments from the pickleball community, a lot of the play for pickleball is along the sidelines, not the baseline, so it's good to have enough space for you to play. So next slide, please. Shows our 8-foot clearance off the baseline, and then another access single gate. We can go to our next slide. That's an aerial view showing the dimensions there, 8-foot between the courts, 10-foot off of the tennis court sideline to the fence. We have people there just for scale. And next slide. You can see the dimensions again, our backless benches outside the court area. And our next slide. And that's the existing. And then on our next slide, we'll see what's proposed. So again, we're achieving that 10-foot clearance off of the obstruction there. And what's not shown are the padding for the posts or for the light poles that we're going to install as well. And next slide. So as far as our lighting, so we want to make sure we get this right. So we're actually consulting with a lighting designer or a lighting consultant What we're trying to achieve, this is just an example, that's a cross-section of a court, so it's only showing, so basically you'll have another 30 feet either direction to get the 120 by 120. But according to USTA standards for tennis court lighting, based on what we've spec'd, a 250-watt LED lamp, we're trying to achieve the Class 4 recreational lighting there, between 30 and 50 foot candles. What we're actually be able to do is we can get between either Class 4 and Class 3, but that's at least the minimum requirement or guideline for the lighting there. So we're going to make sure we get that right. So right now, again, we're getting comments from our consultant on that. So that's not finalized, but it will be soon. All right, next slide, please. It's just the signage requirement for Prop 68 projects. So during construction, it'll be there on the fence, and then for a duration of 4 years after the completion of construction. All right, next slide. This is our tentative schedule. Obviously, it's based on the approval from the commission on the scope of this project, where we want to bid the job in December and then award the contract next year and hopefully start construction in spring of next year. So now, any questions for this part of the presentation?
One, so between the pickleball court and the tennis court, it's just a 48-inch high fence,
Yes, 4-foot fence.
foot fence. The standard, you don't need to keep the tennis balls out, or?
That's a good question. There's not necessarily a standard, but that's based on comments from the pickleball community as well. The main thing is that there's not a gap below, so balls don't roll into the other court.
And there's no fence there now, right, between the two tennis courts?
No.
Okay.
No fencing.
I just want to make sure what I saw from the drawing, so there's going to be lines on the tennis court side, there's going to be lines for two additional temporary pickleball courts, is that
Yes.
right? Okay. And then just curious about the bid phase, so great, that there's so much work that you've done in between, so I appreciate that. And is that everything basically ready to go for the bid, or do you still need more design to be done before the bid goes out?
Yeah, this design is finalized, so it's a matter of getting it approved, and then we can move forward with the bidding process and construction.
Great.
I had some questions. One was, when it came before us 2 months ago, I requested a quote for moving the lights. What did that come in at?
Yeah, good question. So I talked to one contractor, actually two contractors, and they didn't give me an exact amount, but a ballpark. They didn't give me an exact estimate. And they said around 50,000, but again, that's just a ballpark. That would not fit in our scope currently. And they said a lot of that's labor, obviously, because we have existing posts, but there's a lot of trenching involved with doing that.
And would the design change, how much would the design change, or the options available to the design if the posts were moved outside?
That's something we can consider. Beyond that, we have the space, and we've achieved the spacing. I think the issue last time was deciding on an 8-court configuration or a 6-court. We didn't have the spacing for an 8-court. So we did decide on a 6-court configuration, and based on what we have now in the budget and the space we have, it does fit. I don't know if Mark has a comment.
Yeah, a couple of complicating factors in moving the poles outside. On the east side, the property is actually school district property, so it would be outside of what we control. So, and there'd be some trees there. And then on the west side, there's the practice court that the poles would interfere with, as well as there's the restroom facility. And there's really, it's a generalized quote of just moving them out is 50,000, but there's some other complicating factors that would probably make that more.
Okay. Another question was for 6 versus 8 courts. When this came before us a few months ago, the pickleball community, I thought was pretty clear that 8 was needed for tournament play, and that, you know, having fewer than that's great for pickup games and the occasional, you know, gatherings. But did you hear, first of all, there was a request also from the commission that the staff work with representatives from the pickleball court. Did that happen?
Yes.
And what did you hear from them about if they can do tournaments with 6 courts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I know that part of that, which kind of complicates the situation, I know last time we were talking about ADA requirements, and according to the standards, ASBA standards, you have to have a certain clearance. If you're having tournaments there, tournament play, you need to have ADA, not access, but handicap, wheelchair accessibility, or a court for that purpose as well. So I don't think we're officially sanctioning our courts as a tournament area. It's more for recreation. And I don't know if that's an issue, that's something we can address.
How?
So the way I see it is the way the court's lined out right now, the 2 courts that are inscribed on the tennis court meet ADA standards. If we were going to put 4 courts, there's not enough room to have 4 courts and meet ADA standards.
Okay. And what came up about that last time was that people were hard-pressed to think of any pickleball courts in the Bay Area that meet ADA standards, and that there were people who were leading classes for pickleball players in wheelchairs on the standard pickleball courts. And so it's still a little mysterious to me why Albany is uniquely prioritizing that over the any possibility, as far as I'm understanding, that decision alone, which as far as I know would be unique in Albany or close to unique in Albany in the Bay Area, would mean that tournaments could not happen, would be impossible. So what, I mean, so but it sounds like it could in principle be repainted if the city changed its mind, and then 4 courts would fit there?
Yes, we can always redo and repaint the courts. I think, I don't want to downplay the significance of requiring or having an ADA accessible court, or a court that meets the U.S. Pickleball Association's ADA, wheelchair layout requirements. I think that's something, I don't know what other communities have done to address that. So I'm comfortable with the way it is right now.
But another way to address it would be to paint 8 courts, and then if accessibility is needed, then cone off 2 or something like that. Wouldn't that also meet the standard?
I think programmatically that would be hard to manage.
Uh-huh.
That would be hard to
But that would give people the option, wouldn't it?
I'm not maybe entirely understanding what you're.
If you painted 4 courts, people don't have to use 4 courts if they need more space for people in wheelchairs or whatever it is that needs the space.
Let me, yeah, if you paint 4 courts, none of them can be accessible because the side clearance isn't going to be enough. I'm delighted with this. I thought it was great that we got 2 wheelchair accessible courts, and because everybody else does it is a really bad legal defense. So I'm very satisfied with this. I was delighted to see that was the solution, because now we have 2 accessible courts. That's wonderful.
Oh, wait, can I have a clarifying question? Are the 4 courts ADA accessible?
No.
Oh, I see. So,
It
I
needs
see.
10 feet, I think.
So this would allow at least 1 set of courts?
Correct.
Or 2 courts
2
to
courts.
be ADA accessible? Okay, okay.
I guess, I mean, the thing for me is we had the person who said he teaches or leads, programs for people in wheelchairs at standard courts, and he seemed mystified why anybody would need, these other spaces, so.
I would just say that if we were to take up this conversation, which I don't think it's a terrible, I know we don't want to delay, but I would definitely want the ADA community to weigh in, right? Like, if we're gonna make a decision like this, to not be ADA accessible, I think we should then talk to the community. I mean, I gotta tell you, I agree with you that I'd love to, like, at this point, we're making a decision now, why reduce the number of courts if we can actually expand when
Yeah.
it's such a popular thing? So I get it. Like, I don't wanna, like, spend so much money painting something that's not gonna be as maximally useful for our community. But I also feel like, I feel like we'd have to talk to the ADA community and really get a sense if that's okay. I don't know. Sorry.
Well, we do have, I don't know if we can do that now, but there's a slide. We did prepare, we looked at multiple options based on that discussion. And looking at the 8-court configuration,
Andre, do you want to go to that slide in the
yeah.
deck? Okay,
I think it's like
slides, I think.
the last 3.
Last, just scroll down.
You're controlling.
There you go.
There we go. Here we go. This is,
Yes, that's another concept. That's the 8-court configuration. And this was basically just to see the spacing. We went out there and measured multiple times as well. In the next slide, you can actually see the dimensions for that, see why, the main reason why this wouldn't work with our existing space. Based on the ASBA guidelines, we need at least, so we have the 5 feet off of the fence, but with the bench there, that gives us less than 3 feet, and that's not at the net line. I know even though that's a tennis requirement, that still we want to follow that requirement for pickleball as well, as far as obstructions. The space in between, if we went with the 8-court configuration, if you see that ASBA standard is 10 feet between the pickleball courts, and we only have 6 feet there. So that could be an issue, even through tournament play, if you have multiple matches going on at the same time. There's not a lot of space in between the courts there. If you look at the last slide, that's a safety issue as well. Even though we'll have padding there, that's less than the 5-foot space, that the guideline there for ASBA standard. So that would be an issue. So the main thing would be we really just don't have the space for that to accommodate the 8 courts and tournament play.
So it sounds like if the bench wasn't there and the lights weren't there, then we would have the space?
That's what it looks like.
It's kind of a moot point.
Yeah.
It doesn't even work if you don't consider the ADA requirements. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Well, even with this, the ADA requirement, or that standard would be satisfied based on play with the tennis court net as the court. That's the only way we have the spacing for handicap play.
I'm not familiar with pickleball tournaments, but I guess I wonder how do even pickleball tournaments and the companies that run them get away with 8 courts at a time then, right? Like, and that kind of puts into question how these tournaments work.
I think depending on, if you're building something new, then I think it's much easier. I think we're trying to fit a lot of things into a defined space that has light poles and things of that sort that we're working in. So a new installation would be very straightforward to handle all of these.
And there have been a lot of conversions as well, at Berkeley, for example, in Cedar Rose Park and other places, doing what we're doing and converting tennis courts to pickleball courts. So we're not, in creating it's not new territory. But as far as I know, we would be unique in the Bay Area with all these new they're all new, right? All the pickleball courts, permanent pickleball courts are new to have. And so I guess one thing I don't understand about accessibility is what's the basic idea for what makes a pickleball court accessible? Because if you were to paint all 4, then couldn't you then say, if there are folks who are using wheelchairs, that they would, you said they could use the tennis net, but striping that would be tricky with all these other things there. But they could, just maybe 2 of the 4 of those could be used instead or something. That seems like that would be like the most flexibility.
Thinking for wheelchair play?
Yeah.
Well, even with that, we wouldn't have the space. Say you wanted to use one of the four on that side, we wouldn't have the space for that. We have a slide that shows the actual dimensions for that. You don't have to go back to it.
One of the things that would be difficult from a reservation perspective, if you have one court, you know, if this is used by somebody, then, you know, it's how do you, if someone has a reservation and then someone needs the other court, then it's not available to them. And then what happens if there's pickup play and you know, so it's complicated. I think as we get into 4 courts, it gets very tight, and we're pinching, like as it is, we're pinching dimensions for both tennis as well as pickleball, and putting the additional courts there becomes even more pinched.
Okay, I thank you. I had one last question, which was one of your 3D rendering. Well, you showed like a current picture, a photo, and then a 3D render. Oh yeah, this one. The photo, it seemed to show the fence is solid all the way along on the right there, and it like you can't see the building in that photo. So are there modifications to the fence there? Is there a fence there? Just not realizing there is a fence there, maybe all the way across. Oh, okay, there's a
It
fence
was
there.
just, well, I guess the windscreen, the actual photo was there, so you couldn't see past that. Yeah, the renderings don't show the windscreen.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's what
okay.
you're,
So it wasn't that one, it was
there's a few forward.
there.
That one, yeah.
And then all of a sudden to the right, there's all this, if you go one more slide, it looks like the fence was taken out and this building's there all of a sudden, but you're saying that's just all on the other side of the fence?
Yeah.
That building that's the restroom facility. I
And
think
the
you
fence still is there?
can- yeah,
Okay,
you can,
okay.
You can see it, it's just, on that screen, you can't see it, but when you look on the computer, you can see a little mesh fencing.
All right.
you see the restroom facility here.
So, one question, what are the, so this is ASBA standards, not ADA standards, so what is the legal requirement? Is it just the guidelines of that association, or is there legal liability backing behind their guidelines? I mean, if we didn't do it according to that, it's not like ADA, oh, sorry,
We just presume to follow the
best
the
guideline, okay.
guidelines. I don't think there's a specific legal requirement, but if there's the guidelines of the governing body or whatever, we would follow those.
Okay, and then the other question was the 4-foot clearance, because I always thought you could have pinch points of 3 feet for telephone poles and stuff like that when you move around. Obviously, wheelchairs go into houses, so they can go, you know. Not that I'm trying to redo this, but just
Path of travel requirements is 4 feet, at least on sidewalks and the like.
for general, but they're pinch points, like fire hydrants
Oh,
and
I
stuff
see
like
pinch
that.
point, yeah.
Yeah,
I think this also takes into consideration there's sort of the active play on the court and people coming off the court to hit balls and needing
but
clearance.
generally, yeah, those generous spaces are good for everybody, not just people in the wheelchair, right, so.
I did have another question, and this is more about plans for maintenance, because, you know, the court there now is showing signs of lack of maintenance, and it seems like we're giving ourselves a whole lot more to maintain. So has a thought been put into ongoing trimming of the vegetation and maintaining the court?
So that's actually one of the things that we've actually done a little bit already. We've had trimmed back the trees. I think in my mind, one of the challenges with converting to pickleball is that with tennis, the play is centered more in the courts, where now you have courts that are more towards the corners. And if you look in that area, that's where a lot of the dust from the trees accumulates, and so I think there will be more diligence needed in sort of making sure that vegetation's cut back so things aren't falling onto the courts, and that we're regularly maintaining them. We have, in the last couple of years, struck up a relationship with a vendor that does tennis court maintenance. And so I think as we redo tennis courts, we would probably engage them in more maintenance. They're the one who's helped us with some of the things at Terrace the Terrace Park, as well as replace windscreens and things of that sort. So, yeah, I think as we upgrade all of our tennis courts or court facilities, we would need a higher level of maintenance. And, I think we have at all the courts pre-positioned, and I don't think this is something we've done in the past, squeegees and things of that sort. So, my hope is that we can have more and more of those facilities, and collectively, users, city, and everyone, it'll be a little bit better, and then we'll keep on top of vegetation.
Yeah, okay. And then finally, I had a question about the surface. I know that you kind of said something about grinding down, leveling, and then an acrylic surface, and I'm just going back to what I heard when my daughter was on the high school tennis team, and they were complaining about the court that had been resurfaced, had a horrible surface, nobody wanted to play on it. We're not doing that, right?
No, that's the one closest to the baseball field?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it would be good to know so that we don't do it.
We're not doing that here, and that's one of the things we've engaged tennis court type,
Okay.
through that same sort of person who does maintenance of tennis courts to get an assessment and some specs and things of that sort that are more
Okay.
standard. Yeah.
We want high-quality courts as much as we can.
Exactly.
We're doing it, yeah. Thanks. Okay, no more questions.
Okay,
Sorry, I have a question. I think we discussed this like 2 months ago, but there was concern about the removal of the vegetation would have like less shade, I guess. And was there anything really done to think about that, or?
That's a good question. So that was the shading.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the main question was shading outside along the path area. I think the pickleball community, they were requesting like another shade structure, but if you go there now, even during the day, the windscreen provides a lot of shading right there, and the benches will be placed right there in that area. In the court area itself, there's nothing we can really do based on where the orientation of the court and the sun coming up. We can't really provide shading inside.
Okay.
that's it for that item.
Are we doing public
Public,
comment on this?
So, yeah, let's do the public comment on this one, or do you wait till the end of, might as well do it
I think we should do it
now.
this one project, this one, and then move to
Because
the
otherwise, we'd have you here all night, yeah, so,
Right. 'Cause I think there's people who want to comment on pickleball, but really not so much
Got it.
on the dog park.
please come up.
Hi, my name is Amy Neal. I've lived in Albany for 30 years now. I play pickleball at Ocean View several times a week, and I'm really pleased with the changes that you guys made based on the feedback from the last meeting. The only other comment, well, I guess two comments. One is the windscreens at Ocean View are on the inside of the courts, of the fence, and for pickleball, they really should be on the outside, because we hang our bags, we clip our bags onto the chain link, and, with so little clearances, you don't want like bags and water bottles along the fences and on the floor and stuff like that. And there's not gonna be any benches and stuff, so it would be really helpful just to install it on the outside instead of the inside. And then the other one is they should be numbered. Needs to be large plastic or some kind of numbers for each court for reservation, so you're reserving the right one. And, there's always like questions wherever I play, like, which one are you on and what reservation did you get? So that being really clear, I didn't see it in the plans and it would be helpful. So those are my comments, but I really appreciate all the work that was done, the gating and making a little bit more room, and all those things turned out really nice, and I think it'll really be really helpful. Excited to continue to play there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And virtual, or?
We do have 2 hands raised online, so, Deborah, go ahead.
Hi, thank you all for everything you're doing and have done. I have one specific question about I might be missing something, but let's say four courts are going, and then there's 2 benches outside of the court, and then there's wind screens. How would other players view people playing pickleball?
He'll answer the question after you're done. Was that all you had, Deborah?
Yes, that's it. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Andre, can you answer?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. Even now, the windscreen, it's not completely opaque, where you could see, I guess, the silhouette of the players there.
Are there windscreens that we can get
Yeah.
that have cutouts?
they do, yeah.
Yeah, we can.
That can accommodate bag hanging and,
Do that.
The gates usually won't have windscreens on them,
yeah.
Correct.
so you can see
Through the gate. Yep.
But there's a lot of wind, we need the windscreen, I maintain the windscreens with little ties, we need them.
We can look at selectively placing things so that people can hang bags and, as well as, view the courts and the numbers, the court numbering is something we're working out. It's a little tricky because it has to get integrated into the reservation system and so that's sort of a back end thing that we would be working with, Sid's group, the rec group.
Okay, and we have one more person. Kathy, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Kathy Tereskin. I'm the USA Pickleball Ambassador for Albany. Before I forget, I want to make sure to thank commissioners, all of the commissioners, but particularly Commissioners Martin, Abbott, and Frank, who have been with us through this 4-year ordeal of trying to get these courts happening. Your careful questioning really, makes it clear that you have understood what our issues are and come to our defense and really lobbied for us. So that's really appreciated. I can make a couple of points. There's no minimum size, minimum number of courts for a tournament. So we will have tournaments with 6 courts. 8 would just accommodate more people, but I think we understood earlier on that if those light posts can't be moved, then the current design is really the best design because otherwise it's just too much of a hazard and it just gets too crowded. I have worked really closely with Andre over the last 2 months with suggestions and everything and can't be more appreciative of his responsiveness and all the corrections or adjustments he made. So kudos to Andre for that. As far as wheelchair, I don't really know, as long as a wheelchair can get through a gate and between 2 nets, I don't know the official laws, but I know that at Berkeley, we had 7 wheelchairs on a court that had 5-foot perimeter, far less than what these courts are going to have. So whether or not they are, they meet the requirements, they will be used, or can be used by wheelchair players. The question about shade that I think Commissioner Frank talked about last week, I think she was asking about shade on the courts and would that be better to have shaded courts? And when it's tree shade and it's very dappled and blowing around and stuff, that's not so great. So we don't really look for shade on the courts unless they're completely shaded with an overhead structure. But I did talk to Andre about having a shade structure over the benches on the outside. But I will say that we have shown this plan to probably 20 of the regular pickleball players whose email address I had. And they have gone over it carefully. And again, since we can't move the light posts, this is really the best use of the space and we're very happy with it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any more speakers?
No, that's it.
Okay. Then, Guess you're not looking for suggestions. Here we are.
Well, I just had one comment, one suggestion that wasn't really a question, and I think it'd be a good idea to put a gate at the tee, so that there's a gate on either side of the pickleball. Because people rotate fields, courts, they do all kinds of stuff. And so I just think we're going to feel stupid for not having that there if we don't do that.
Is that accessible? I thought that was in the other field. I mean, isn't there a fence for the school parking lot there?
No, a fence.
Where's the tee?
So you have the tee. So the tee goes through the middle, or the 4-foot-high fence.
Where the bench
We're
is?
in the courts.
So where the bench
Oh,
is.
you got it.
Everybody in the court. So right now, there's a gate at where the.
Right here?
So I'm suggesting there, yeah, putting a gate there. But right now, there's a gate up at the other end where, up.
Right there. Oh,
Up.
Oh,
There.
here. Okay.
There. So if somebody, so they can come in and go there.
Yeah.
But now, say you're playing here, you've got to go all the way over there, past another game going, and then all the way back. Just put a gate right there, and then they can just go right through.
You mean right? An additional gate, yeah, okay.
An additional gate. It's just, it's an obvious thing. It's just,
We actually had a few iterations of this design. So we had, originally we did have both gates there, then we had one gate across that dividing fence from the tennis court and the pickleball courts, and then we decided to move it up. But yeah, we can.
it just
we can
makes sense.
accommodate
It
that.
just
That's
seems
fine.
like, I know that pickleball, it's very fluid. People swap courts, they trade, all that, and it just makes sense to me that.
I think we got a lot of comments
Yeah.
with lots of different ideas, and this represents sort of a mishmash of that, because I think there were comments that they didn't want a second gate, that they wanted to route people one way in and around, so.
Oh, yeah.
I
Wait, so what is, sorry, can you
So
tell
it's
us?
about control, okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is an important question, and I do think it's hard for even just one person may have a strong opinion, but it may be, I don't even know. So what is where are the gates? Can you just explain where they are right now?
Go to the
Bring up,
next,
there's a slide
go
that.
to the next slide as well
Oh, okay.
to show it. But
one more.
I guess the main reasoning for that, you can see it at the top there, the east side.
Sorry.
It's a little hard to see where the gates actually are.
yeah, I'm looking at the aerial. Looks like it's cut
Oh,
off.
okay, good.
Here would be the gate,
Okay,
and then you come
7 is
across
a-
here,
yeah.
and then there's a gate, and then you come down here, and there's gates on either side. So the gate, the access would be across the eastern side of the courts.
okay. And so there's a different gate for tennis and the pickleball.
Yes, two
Okay.
gates, yeah.
We've had every version of
Yeah, I can imagine.
gate over here,
Yeah.
multiple gates, and I think
But I,
there's a diverse.
Mark my words.
There's a,
Todd.
there's a diversity of
okay.
opinions.
Okay.
It's okay, people exercise a little bit, had to go around.
You ready to hear it?
I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, whoever designs these courts must have something to say too, I would imagine, right? I mean, I don't know. Did they
I
get
think
advice on
there's
that?
A diversity of opinions.
Okay, even there. Okay,
And
I
this
know,
is our
it's hard.
attempt to kind of mesh that.
Got it, yep.
Really didn't realize it'd be so controversial.
Oh, it-
Suggestion.
I'm not sure that's accessible. I think that's in the school property. There's a big, no, seriously, I think it's fenced
That's
off.
not what I'm talking. I'm talking about in the middle of the courts.
In between the courts,
In the middle of, see the bench?
Behind the tennis bench.
in between,
Right there. I'm talking about a gate right there.
Oh, okay.
in between the courts, yeah,
I'm just confused. Thank you.
Yeah.
Off on a different.
okay.
And then I wanted to comment that hearing the public comment was very helpful in person and online, and it was good to hear how much iteration it did go through with the community and staff, and that, when we saw the initial design 2 months ago, that it sounds like a lot of the concerns were addressed, and that was really good to hear, and that the positive vibes coming about that. Given all the time that has been put into this over the years and all the community input up till this point, it sounds like to me that it's at a good place, and I'm ready to make, is there a motion, or we're just getting feedback, basically?
If-
Just
In some
feedback.
ways, it's just feedback
A
and making
feedback.
sure we're on the
Okay.
same page.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, like, awesome that you got that comment, that we got that comment, that Andre, you've been doing. I can just imagine the amount of work that you put in to get from just 2 months ago to today, so I appreciate that.
A lot of emails too.
Oh, okay. Well, not, the agenda does say recommendation that the commission approve the final scopes of work for improvement at these parks. So does that mean a vote?
Sure, if we want to do, yeah.
Okay.
Two more sections to hear about, though?
Or let's
We could do them one at a time.
One at a time. I think it's good.
We have that
Yeah.
Let's
option.
take a, any last comments on this design?
No other hands are raised online.
Okay,
So I move to approve the design as presented.
Second?
Okay. Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Chin?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandberg?
Yes.
And Chair Kent?
yes.
Okay.
All right. Move on to Peggy Thompson, Pierce Street Park.
Thank you for coming.
So we're gonna actually go to, Memorial Park,
Okay, Memorial Park.
specifically the dog park. So we can go to the next slide. So this is our project scope. Complete that sidewalk there and curb along Carmel Avenue. We're gonna relocate the entrance of the dog park to the other side near the concession area, new concrete pad, in addition to what's existing there with bottle filler, high-low bottle filler with the dog bowl, new trash receptacles, recycling, as well, new protective sports netting along the fence that separates the ball field from the dog park. New trees will be planted with benches along that fence as well. A new drainage system, French drain to eliminate the drainage issues there, along with redoing the irrigation as well. New LED path lighting, and that was something that was discussed at a couple meetings ago, and that design's already completed. The light fixtures are spec'd for that, so that was reviewed already. And then a separate small dog fenced area within the dog park. So go to the next slide, please. That shows the improvements there. So we have the new sidewalk that will be going in. We have to remove an existing tree stump. It kind of blocks that area. We'll complete the curb, 6-inch curb as well. We have we're gonna relocate that entrance there to the other side of the park there with the holding area for the dogs coming in. We see the concrete pad there that we're extending out at the existing seating area there. New trees, plant material, and benches along that fence. And based on the comments from our last meeting, we have the small dog area there with a 4-foot fence and gate, single gate that's separating from the main area with some additional seating there and a French drain running along the batting cage there on the other side of the fence there. We can go to the next slide. So along with the drainage and redoing the irrigation, that would help with the excessive, we'll say swampiness there. It gets really muddy. We could put them on separate schedules as well from the ball field, again, along with the drainage that's there. Next slide, please. And as well as the storage area there, we're actually in discussions with the school district about that exact configuration. We're still going to have that fence extend, as we saw on the plan there, all the way around with the new double gate there at the top. Yep, that area right there. We can go to the next slide, please. That's what's existing, and then we can see the proposed entrance. So that's going to be the new entrance of the dog park there with the holding area, a 4-foot chain link fence. We see the bottle filler there as well with the dog bowl, new trash receptacles, as well as a waste receptacle for the dog waste, and a protective netting from foul balls coming from the ball field. Our next slide, please. You see the fence running along adjacent to the ball field. And we can see what, in the next slide, was proposed there with some seating, the benches there and trees for shade, as well as some guards, tree guards to protect the trees there. And our next slide, please. That's our existing area, and we're proposing to make that the small dog area that we see in our next slide, with a fence that separates that area, a 4-foot fence, again with additional benches there for seating, and the French drain there as well to help with the excessive water that's there. Our next slide. So that's our tentative schedule. Similar to Ocean View, we want to bid this job again after the approval from the commission for the scope of work early next year, and then award the contract in the spring and start and complete construction really before the summer, if we can. Do we have any questions for this section?
I have a question. The small dog park, and sorry that I didn't ask about this before, but do you think there's a need for a double gate at the small dog area?
Actually, I was just looking at that too. We need to get in there and mow the grass, so yeah, sure there would be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. But, I mean.
You're talking about an extra wide gate, and she's talking about,
Yes, I'm
like
talking about for
like
the
an
dog.
airlock.
Yeah,
Different double gate.
Yeah.
like an airlock.
So I'm just thinking, because that's the reason that we have the double, right, there is going to be a double gate, I think, at the main entrance. I'm just thinking for the owners of small dogs, and the reason I say that is, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the need for the small dog park is that some small dogs fear the bigger dog, just the sort of interactions. I don't know if it's necessary. It's just a question as you're thinking of designing or building it out right now.
You're asking about like a holding area?
Yeah, like
The
just
entrance
like
of the small dog?
Yeah, and maybe it's not. I don't know if it's a thing. I'm just now that we're at this point, I think we should wonder.
That's related to a question I had, which somebody else had asked me, was concerned about, that you have to take your small dog through the big dog area. Yep. Is there a way to make a hallway there to connect it and then have the double, or then that would already be, connected to the double gate area? Or if nothing else, what Commissioner Frank is saying sounds like would be good, so that big dogs don't run in or small dogs don't run out. An airlock at the small dog area.
That's a good question, yeah.
It's a good question for a small dog owner. I mean, I think, I was actually thinking that was the first question I thought when I saw the design, and I thought, oh, well, maybe they'll just hold their dog.
Yeah, that's what I was, people just pick their dog
They can
up.
just pick up their dog, which maybe that's the solution. But once they're in the dog park, and I don't know, it's just a question for a small dog owner, I think.
We did actually discuss that briefly, maybe a separate entrance at the exterior fence, but that would be an issue.
So we looked at a separate entrance, and there's some challenges because there's no clear way to get in to there. There's and you'll be taking out either a garden or there's grade issues, and so there's no. A separate entrance would be challenging in this area. So I think.
I think it's not an easy question, because I actually think that already the large dog owners are not going to be happy about not having as long as a runway. And then if you jutted out the fence even more, it would just be like, you're even taking more space. So I don't think that's an ideal situation.
I've taken my dog there a number of times just through this process to, and covertly talk to other dog owners, and there's. I think you're exactly right. Putting the small dog park in there will limit the size, and I'm sure there's going to be some concerns on just reducing the overall size of the park. So.
Okay.
But, yeah, okay.
It's an improvement, but you're right, there could always be issue with how big are little dogs and how strong is the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, and I don't know what that threshold would be to what qualifies as a small dog versus, it's all over the place.
I mean, on that note, would we consider like a sign on the gate kind of saying, no?
I don't know how you would regulate that.
Or not regulating, just like, hey, this is probably what a small dog looks like. Like, And like,
Have a height bar?
yeah, exactly, like in a roller
Think of those things
coaster.
like for your carry-on at the airport, if your dog.
Exactly. It is a judgment call you make on
I'm
your
sure
own.
there's some regulation size for the airport. We could go by that.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know how that would,
And I would also say that it seems like it would be easy to add a second gate if needed.
Right. So later on.
An Eagle project or something, that would
Right.
be good. So maybe,
And I think instead of taking more space from the large dog park, that's why I initially thought just something that inserted into the small dog park, you know, if we need to. So maybe that's just something we deal with later. if we-
and on some level, this is a fairly minor component of the overall project. So if, quite frankly, if we get lots of pushback and it's not working from the big dog perspective, maybe take out the fence and find a small dog park somewhere else.
It's not a problem it's not a problem to do that structurally, right? To just take out that fence.
I mean, you take out a fence, it's pretty straightforward. So, and I think that's a pretty, you know, compared to what we're doing all over, that's a pretty nominal piece. And all the points that are brought up are all valid. I'm not a dog park expert in terms of this, so it's something we can see how it works and.
No, I don't want to slow it
Adjust.
down for this question, but maybe we just tackle it later.
Well, I think the answer will reveal itself once it's open.
one way or the other.
One way or the other.
I haven't been around for this whole process, but has anyone expressed an interest or asked for like these kind of toys for big dogs? Like I've seen them. I went to a park once where they had like things they can leap over in the tunnels, and maybe it's not even in the funding, but has it been asked for?
I don't think it's been specifically asked for.
I also don't have a dog.
I think there's a challenge with space here.
Okay.
I mean, this is not a huge dog park.
No.
So I think I think an earlier concept had more trees in the middle, and when you kind of out there and say, well, we'll put one here, put one there, and see dogs running around, there's not a lot of space.
This I think was envisioned more as like the basic infrastructure of a dog park, and then I think some amenities like that should be, you know, considered in the future, or even just like a fake fire hydrant off in the corner.
On the map, the mock-up that you made.
It's so whimsical and fun, and I don't know, but so I think that should be considered in the future. But I like this is something that the three of us were on the subcommittee for that for years and interviewed so many people and crunched so many numbers, and particularly Commissioner Chang Frank and Commissioner Abbott. I came on a little later. And so it's really great to see this actually happening, and I personally like the small dog park. And I guess we should stick it to questions right now. But so one quick question I had was the sidewalk. Can you clarify what it goes from and to?
Okay, yep. So in the slide, so right now if you go there in person, it's
weird.
ends.
The first slide. There we go. It's this area. This is one where I could probably jump in there because
Please.
Right in here, the sidewalk ends. And if you look out there, you're like, why did it end here? I went back and it looked like there was a large tree in that area, so they didn't continue the sidewalk. And then since that tree has been taken down and we've planted new trees but it just looks so out of place that it just stops. Yep. So it's really just a.
And that'll take you to basically the street crossing.
Corner.
There's going to be no entrance in the corner there anymore, right?
I think the gate is staying, but it'll remain locked because I think it'll be a nice.
It's an option.
It'll be
Also an exit, I guess, an exit.
No,
it'll be an exit.
It'll be more of an access for like maintenance or something like that. But that corner. So we're not proposing any changes to that corner there, the exterior stuff, because once you start playing with that, then we end up redoing all the curb ramps. We end up doing this, and then it becomes a curb ramp project rather than a dog park project.
I do have a question. If there's trees, I'm wondering if we could do trees just on the outside like in front of the gate, like around where there's currently like an open space. And the reason I'm asking for that because when we did our public outreach, a lot of those neighbors right in the corner there were really bothered by noise, which is why it wasn't a legitimate dog park for so many years. So I'm just wondering, any kind of vegetation that might create more mitigation of noise?
We have a couple of years ago, we did plant some trees along this area.
okay.
So that was something.
Already there.
I think when I first started getting involved in this, it was like, well, gosh, we can
Yeah,
do this element right now.
yeah,
So that's been already done.
okay. Eventually, I don't know if this is what you all do or if somebody else, but I also think like shrubbery might be helpful too, just because I've heard also complaints like about putting that fence up and it doesn't look as pretty, you know, so just anything we can do, I think, to mitigate for the neighbors. But maybe that's not for this project here.
I think one of the things that the trees within the dog park, I think, will have some help. And I think back to Commissioner Martin's point about this is like making it a dog park, because this was really, an auxiliary athletic field. And so it functioned like an athletic field. The irrigation system was the same irrigation system that's used for the baseball field. So I think that contributed to the sogginess. And so this will make it, I think, a better experience. But that's not to say that down the road there might be things that we want to improve in this.
Thanks.
Maybe we could take, is there anyone waiting to comment on this?
No hands are raised.
I had a couple more quick questions. One was, is there a poop bag dispenser already there or planned for there? And if it can be put there, is that something the city can, like, replenish?
I think there's one on there's a couple of things. I think there's one on the gate coming in, and so obviously that would get relocated. I think there might actually be one on the bench. But there's facilities out there, but we would clearly
To move them around?
That's
That's not a
and put
problem.
'em- yeah.
And that is something that the city, the Public Works
Yeah.
restock?
Yeah,
Okay.
we, throughout all our parks, the bulb, we
Have
stock,
those.
we restock. We go through a lot of doggy bags.
And then
lot
my
of
last question was,
Jamira orders them all so she can get
you can give us the numbers on.
3,000 bags,
Let's get a report on that next time. And then, so one question, so you gave the timeline. Through that timeline, are there any phases of it when the park will be closed to the public? And if so, for what duration is the anticipated closure?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something that, I would discuss. Well, it's good to discuss that now, but in our pre-construction with the GC. But based on the areas of work, there is a possibility to keep the dog park open. We can always fence off the area that's, east, like along the fence line. So it'll be a small area, and that's something that we could decide later.
I would say kind of a reasonable example of what it might look like is when the scout bench was built. We put up snow fencing to cordon off part of the area, and it seemed to work. It's not ideal, but
Okay.
I think once it there's a lot of parts and pieces here, but not a huge amount of work. So hopefully it'll go pretty quickly.
So we heard a comment about and this is more on the operational side, but it's not the first time I hear someone talk about the hours. And so what is kind of like, what does the city think about the hours, and like, what's the future of that?
So I think the hours, and actually, I think some of the commissioners here might have a better understanding, but I think
can
it's
explain the history if you're curious.
I think that's a long
Right.
negotiated with the neighbors, and I think that's tied to removing the gate. So I don't know if this gives us an opportunity to revisit some of the hours, but that would, I would have to dig into the history, and actually, Commissioner Abbott, you probably know a whole lot more than I do.
I think that's right. I mean, we're hopeful so moving the gate, the purpose of moving the gate is to get where people congregate and the dogs bark the most on the other side away from the home. So that's kind of the point there. So we're hoping things will be quiet enough that we could extend the hours. The history of the hours is that when it first came to this commission to have this park, this commission, this is actually before I was on it, suggested broken up. So like 8 AM or 7 AM to 9 AM, and then in the evening. And council said, no, that's too much, we're just gonna make it 11 to whatever. So, so that's kind of the history there. But yeah, there is a need for a dog park early in the morning before work. So I think that's a real opportunity, perhaps.
I think it is too, yeah.
If the shift works, that'd be a real opportunity. And just speaking of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, okay, so something maybe we come back to, or the city, you all do on your own, but definitely a note for us to ask, and if you, when did you say this was gonna be done? When?
So in the spring, maybe late spring.
Okay, so give it a few months after that, and then we'll see, okay.
Might need to survey the residents again and see how it's going.
I think there's going to be a couple of things we need to keep an eye on as this comes in. I know one of the things that I see is we're moving the entrance from to between the baseball field and the batting cages, and I know there's a lot of teams that are there, and they warm up, and so there's going to be more mixing of different uses in that area. So there's going to be a lot of things, and my sense is we're going to have to relocate trash cans and things of that sort where people are using them versus where we may have them here. And I think the various baseball teams have stored materials out in that area that we don't want to do that anymore, and that's why we're talking with them about expanding the storage within the field. So I think there's a couple of things that we'll need to keep our eye on and tweak as it comes into play.
Are the trash cans staying on where they are now outside that?
My guess is we would take them out, right?
Because I was going to say, if you put a hole in the fence, then people could drop them there and it'd be easy to empty them. Or a gate.
Not big enough to put a small dog through, though.
Yeah.
A couple of questions. I didn't see the lighting plan, although you talked about it. And then the trees, you had a very urban kind of tree grade. Maybe that was just what was available in the software program, but I would suggest something larger that's maybe a built cage, because that needs to be bolted to concrete, the one you showed there. And why wouldn't you push them back towards the fence so they're not obstacles? 'Cause as mentioned about putting the dog place elements in there, a lot of people like it open because their dogs crash into those things. That might also be an obstacle, that the trees might be an obstacle that crash into it. So if you push them back between the benches, maybe they wouldn't get hit as much or something.
Something that's going to determine that as well is the irrigation that's running there. Is there? Well, that's what's shown there too.
Schematic. That's
Yeah.
I've been out there, and that's not
The exact.
it's not even
No,
close.
I'm trying to follow that irrigation plan, I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
And then what, you said you're going to replant, is it, you talking about the sod, or what do you mean, just the trees, the sod, anything else?
The trees.
Trees, okay,
The maintenance side will take care of like reseeding.
okay.
In our field closure, we do an overseed, aeration and overseed, and apply the compost. So that's going on now.
And then where is the lighting going to go? And is it part of the Greater Memorial Park lighting project?
So the lighting project, the lighting came before this commission a number of years ago, and that's basically the same lighting that here. You go to the first slide. One more, two more. There you go. Up. So it's pathway lighting in the. See if I can get this. Yeah, in this area, it's pathway lighting, and I believe it came through the commission a number of years ago. We're basically updating light fixtures to current model numbers and so forth, but the layout's essentially the same, and it's part of the Prop 68 projects.
And so, but none of it's actually right next to the dog park, or?
No. So it's
kind of tacked on as.
pathway lighting. It's a memorial park project that includes dog park improvements and
it's
pathway lighting.
Dog park adjacent. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and they would be done clearly by two separate contractors and so forth.
Any more comments?
One more comment, and now that we're separating the watering from the field, is that an opportunity to look for a more robust grass or plant that might, anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just putting that out there, planting a seed, as it were.
Or wood chips and run it year-round. That would be my preference, so.
You know what's interesting? And again, I've been out there and kind of talking to different folks, and there's some people who really like grass because this is the only sort of grass. And I know it turns by the end of the season to be basically dirt, but they like it because they don't like wood chips and it seems to bother their dog. So again, now that it is a dog park, we can look at like what is the appropriate surface and whether that's maybe a different covering.
Yeah.
Something we can maybe look at down the road.
We do a fair amount of dog parks, and some cities swear on wood mulch, others swear on sod, others swear on artificial turf. Some say DG. It's really all over the place, so.
I think there's as many opinions as there are fencing on pickleball.
Yeah.
No, I've got my idea.
Well, perhaps we should, anyone want to make a motion to accept?
I can make a motion. I'll move to accept the Memorial Park, Parks Rec and the dog park proposal and design. Yep.
I think you should second this one.
You.
I second.
Okay.
Okay, with that, Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank,
Yes.
Commissioner Chin,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandberg,
Yes.
and Chair Kent.
Yes.
Thank you.
Peggy Thompson, Pierce Street Park.
Okay. Then we have Pierce Street Park. So the illustration shows future improvements. So it's not included with our Prop 68 project, but like the bike path going around the field, multi-use field, or lawn area, and then a future bike park. But we're going to talk about the access improvements for Pierce Street Park. So project scope, new entry stairs with handrails, 2 sets of stairs, new landscape boulders and plant material, new AC path with bollard, a new shade structure for the seating area, as well as an additional shade structure for the play equipment. Looking at our layout there, you can see the first set of stairs there on the south side of the playground, running down to the restroom there. Another option that we were discussing as well, along with the landscape boulders to kind of control traffic to the entry areas of the park, is to have fencing. That's an option along the south side there of the sidewalk, and then also at the other side, the north section above or north of the playground where the other entry stairs are located. As well as we'll have a bollard at the top of the asphalt path. So we can go to the next slide. So that's the man-made path there, and it's pretty steep, that area as well.
Child-made.
Yeah, so it's not really even safe to enter the park at that location. So if you go to the next slide, we're gonna have the entry stairs in that approximate location with landscape boulders kind of directing the flow to the stairs. Additional trees will be planted as well for additional shading along that staircase. We'll have a shade structure for the seating area there. And we can go to the next slide to see the other man-made path there where the new staircase will be located. We can go to the next slide, please. And we're going to spec lumber for the material used to construct the stairs there. Again, additional trees will be planted, landscape boulders, trees behind the benches for shading. And next slide. I guess we'll see the aerial shot of the additional shading or the shade structure for the playground. And regarding that, we have a GC that will, that's suggested doing a custom shade structure there. So it actually goes along the outline of the safety surface. So it'll actually fit the space much better. This is just an example. It's like a generic shade structure. And then we'll come back to the commission when that's finalized. That'll be another phase of the project. But we're going to focus on first the access improvements along with the landscape. And that's it for the first phase of construction. Next slide, please. So that's our tentative schedule again, bid process in the spring. We're looking to complete construction in the summertime of 2024. So any questions for this portion?
Questions? So you showed trees in the illustration, right? And so that's always been kind of a problem, getting trees to grow out there. Is there some plan for augmenting the soil or some kind of deep prep, or are we just going to try again?
Mark knows the history.
This is a really challenging site from a soil perspective. It's essentially the old off-ramp. So there's, in talking to John, it's keep planting them until some trees are taking and they're doing okay and others are not. And so, when it was built, we augmented the soil, but it's really.
Was there ever like a soil plant testing lab that made recommendations on how to augment it? Or?
I think the problem is this is really just it's the old off ramp, and there's just a tremendous amount of debris from that project.
Gravel.
And I think there was some initial there was a spec for this was done right when I got here. There was some spec for augmenting the soil, and I imagine it was based on some sort of an analysis. But it's a real challenging site.
No, it seems like each tree is a major project in itself, but there would be, a serious excavation made for it or something. All right.
I just wanted to confirm, so we're only really talking about the access, right? We're not talking about any, besides maybe some trees, we're not talking about the whole multi-use area, right? That sort of open space.
No, I think, from our perspective, our next task would be, there's this bike path that goes through that's scheduled to go through the park. The developer of the Saha project has worked it through their site and into our site, and our thought would be to engage an engineer, landscape architect, to bring that through the rest of this project's, the rest of the park, and connect it further down south on Pierce, and then that will help define sort of the space available and what we need to do. I think there's going to be some grading that we have to do on the south side of the park. So that's something that we have outlined that Andre's going to get working on here shortly.
No, I guess I'm just wondering, is that going to come back to our commission in terms of what we should use that big field for?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think for us, the first step is to work that pathway through there, because there's a lot of grade issues that we need to work through that will help define what space is available and grades and so forth.
Okay, but but we'd have some input into that, right? Because we wouldn't want to have the car, whatever they decide the path to be, to determine what we can actually have a field for, right?
So I think it'll follow, to a large extent, the original design, which had the path going on the west side of the park. Okay. It's more of
perimeter.
It's sort of winding its way up, and now we need to finish that. And so there's going to be some. Actually, why don't we go back to the original? One more.
We just want to be sure we can get 8 pickleball courts in there. as
Yeah, right. Well, you don't want to, right, we don't want to eliminate use because of, right, we want to, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, on the south side of the park, you see the squiggly coming up the hill. We need to work that back in to the original alignment, and that's going to be probably largely driven by the grades we need to hit. So it's really, at this point, a grading exercise, or, you know, a grading exercise. And so that will, you know, define
Okay.
the area that we have.
Okay. I just-
Yeah, but clearly.
We'll have some say over the design of that at that point when it comes through,
Oh,
right? Okay,
absolutely,
great.
and I think we would even like, come and, here's what we've worked out on the path, and bring the path here and say, here's what it looks like.
Great, okay, thanks.
And I think there's actually a, as we say on the bike park, where it says the bike park, there's a lot of opportunity in that space, and one of the things we would do is, you know, engage a surveyor and really lay out where the extent of our property, we own a certain extent past that gate, and really figure out what the space, and that's another place that's underutilized that I think has some potential.
Okay, great, thanks.
I just had a question about the stairs themselves. So they're going to be like similar to the stairs that they have at like Albany Hill, so not like entirely concrete.
Exactly.
Okay.
Very similar to the path stairs at the top of the hill.
Okay.
More questions? Pretty straightforward.
Any public, well, there's no public comments.
Okay, I had a couple comments myself. One was, I was glad to see the south stairs are in there, because I know at the last meeting when this was presented, there was some doubt as to whether or not that could happen. And given where I live, there's a number of people that approach from the south, and boom, you know, that's what you want to do, is just go right down that, even though it's really steep and no one should be going down that. And maybe in the future we want to do like Codornices Park and put a concrete slide right next to it or something, but that could be a pretty big hit. But and then also I was grateful to see the shade structure is in there, because that was something when we first decided on Prop 68 funding, that there was sort of a question mark next to that one. Is like, could we really do that with the scope? And I'm glad to see that it is in there.
Another question. So what is the scheduling of when the affordable housing project is going to be complete and their access to the park? Is that going to dovetail, or will they be just climbing the slope until we put a path in?
I'm not sure exactly how that, there might be an interim condition, and I'm not sure exactly what that looks like. They're bringing the path up to, the path they're building right now is, I think, as I understand it, part of their exiting of the property, you know, emergency exiting, and I think there is a part that's gonna come up to the park, but I'm not sure the connection. But I can maybe get some more information on that. Ultimately, we want the pathway and the bikeway to go through there and make a really nice connection. But I can get more information on that. I just don't know the details off the top of my head.
It'd be a shame if they had that path and it just stops as a chain link fence.
Sure, yeah.
So that's,
That makes sense.
Yeah, I had a conversation with them after learning about the project, and I mean, I was under the impression I thought we were doing a path all the way through to Cleveland. Is that in question?
So, no, it's
Oh.
the path will, the bike path shown here, it actually picks up at, on Pierce Street at near 555 Pierce, the towers, and we'll head south, and it'll come down the property and connect into Cleveland. And on an associated project, we are designing started out as a paving project, but now it's a storm drain and street improvement project. We'll have a separated bike lane on the western side of Cleveland that'll connect into the larger network. So there's definitely all these pieces. Whether the timelines match up perfectly,
Right.
I'm not quite sure, but I think what Commissioner Kent was talking about is when the Saha opens, what would be the connection to the park? Because we're not going to necessarily have our part of the pathway done at that same time.
Okay, okay.
So-
Makes sense. They gave me like they want residents in December timeline. So I think that's really, every time I see the project, I'm like, okay, they're looking to have residents in there in December, so.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
sure
moving
that's-
fast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Good.
Any more comments? So I guess we're voting on whether we agree with the improvements Andres presented. Anyone want to make a motion?
I can make that motion. I'll move that we approve the plans for the Thompson Pierce Street Park.
Second?
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Chin?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Sandberg?
Yes.
And Chair Kent?
Yes.
Thank you.
So that's it for item 6.1, right? Are you off, or are you presenting 6.2? Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, thank you.
He's off.
Thank you.
He's off the hook.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So
6.2, Parks, Recreation, Open Space Commission 2023 status update.
yeah, so let me. It's right here. How do I get this? Here. Too many competing. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is an annual status report that, switch. So this is a status report update that we're doing this year, and I think this is a deviation from what has been done in the past, where there's a formal, there's a more larger status report to council. I think this is an effort to sort of streamline the process, so this is what we're doing at each of the commissions. So what I did is, in preparation of this, this was a template that we were given. It has three basic areas. One was an attendance summary. The second is sort of what were the items that we worked on as a commission. And then the third area was what are the prospective work items for the following year, and have them tie to the strategic plan. And I don't know if you're familiar with what the strategic plan, but the strategic plan represents more of a streamlined, focused document than what we've had in the past. So I think this goes hand in hand. I went a little bit off script here, just because I think this helped me think through the year and sort of the cadence of meetings and so forth. But let me get back and I can.
And can you zoom in on that for the
Yeah.
public?
I'll try to, yeah. I got a jumpy mouse.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah.
So what what I did in the attendance summary is I just went through the meetings for 2023 and lined out what we had in the meetings, and what were the full meetings in attendance, and then absences. And this year we had 3 cancellations. I assume I didn't know that Commissioner Oji was not going to be here, so I'll obviously make that adjustment, and that's just reporting of the facts. And then for the work completed, or the work that we worked on, I just really went through the agendas for the year and tried to pull together, and instead of it seemed in the past that we were recreating every of the agendas and it was very long. I tried to group it into specific categories, and really just the order is based on sort of how they came up in the context of the agendas. So, in tree applications, we reviewed 11 of them. 7 were recommended for removal. We had 4 recommended for retaining. 1 of those was appealed to City Council. So, those are just the strict numbers. And then there's the RFP for the street tree management plan. Came back to the commission a couple times, and then Chair Kent participated in the review and selection of the commissioner, so I condensed that into a single item. We had the recommendation from the Flex Court Subcommittee about the pilot program. Again, that came to the commission a couple times. My sense is we'll have some follow-up on reporting and sort of what's happening, and I can tie that. That's where I went off script in the last section. I'll show you that. And then we had the presentations on the final street tree inventory that was done and sort of how we would use that. There were a couple of presentations on that. We made recommendations on the soda tax revenue, use of the soda tax revenue. We had the presentation on the Eagle Scout candidate, which we saw the results of that. And that's actually a really good project. And I walked it and was talking to Margot with some of the details where, if recall, we had some discussion about how the foundations were going to be done. And they went through a couple of iterations and ended up bringing in concrete, and they bolted it to the thing. So I think it's a great detail that I think we can replicate elsewhere in the park. So I think that turned out really well. I was really excited about that. And then, we received a number of staff presentations, and again, I tried to lump these into one area. There were our management, and we can get into this more in more detail. There were what I view as regular ones. We want to have a couple of presentations dealing with park operation and maintenance, open space, and you'll see that I have some other ones lined out too. But and then there'll be opportunities for project-specific ones, and the ones that we saw here were the storm response as well as the pass-through bulb outs, which I don't know if you've seen those through the city. They're working. The one on Canes is working better than the one on San Carlos, but I think that's an interesting concept. And then we reviewed the Prop 68 projects, and again, I think I listed this as in process because I don't think tonight isn't the end of this. We're going to have updates as things get into construction, so I think that's something we would be coming back to the commission with. So I had that still in process. And then we had the Solano Avenue presentation, again, twice. One, the assessment, and then the action to remove 3 of the 27 trees. And then tonight's presentation on AB 2404. So going through, I think that hits kind of the breadth of what's been done. And then in the kind of the forward-looking things, looking at the strategic plan, the only thing that has a direct mention in the strategic plan is the work around street trees. And again, if if you look at the strategic plan, it's been reconfigured with the notion of, called it the iceberg model, where most of the work, the 80% of the work is sort of underwater and just happens. And this is the part that's in the plan itself is more of the kind of the visionary, the next step stuff. And I think the street tree management plan fits that and is specifically called out. But a lot of the other work that the commission does is more sort of under the water. So what I did here is try to line out what I think are the things that we would be doing. What I would like to really get into a schedule where we have two pretty robust presentations on park operations and maintenance. Then we would do the same thing with natural areas management. And this year we had a presentation by our habitat intern, our habitat restoration intern. So we're actually going to have 2 of those a year now. So 2 interns per year for different times. So we might coordinate those to be at the end of the intern's time here, so they can report out on projects, as well as Margot's normal presentations on creeks and other places that are going on. I talked to Sid to say, we'd probably want a rec program update, and so that would come in, and they would come and do that presentation. I think we would do that once a year, and then have the AB 2404. So as sort of the cadence of sort of staff level presentations, and then as things come up, we would bring those, and then we would do again fall into our 4 times a year or quarterly tree removal review of tree removal applications, and then I think now we get into the meatier things that are on our agenda would be the street tree management plan, which we have Port Science scheduled to come here on at the January meeting to kick off their work. And that, I think, we'll have check-ins throughout the process in that. And I think this commission is going to be a big meaty item for us this coming year. And then, again, we have I kind of view this as a standard option would be review input and recommendations on projects impacting the parks, recreation, parks and open spaces. And right now we have the Margot's project, the Albany Hill eucalyptus, which I think they want to come here early in the 2024. They're getting some concepts together, and then they'll come and present. And then, obviously the Prop 68 projects will come as Andre executes some of these things. We'll update you. This is my first time doing this, so that's sort of my thought of how this was my opportunity to maybe lay out what I think is a reasonable cadence or initiatives for us next year. And one of my thoughts too, as I was thinking this, was the staff presentations are an opportunity to sort of develop sort of a shared understanding of sort of issues or things going on in the parks that might inform priorities for a CIP, or I was thinking back to the discussion about sugar-sweetened beverages, so we can maybe through these think about something that would be packaged nicely to fit within what the requirements or what gets recommended for projects. This is something we've done internally in terms of grants, because what we found out, like before, we were like, hey, here's a grant, let's think of a project, and then we cobble it together. We don't necessarily have the resources to complete it, then we get the grant and we're like, uh-oh, now how do we get this? Rather than saying, here's a need, and then we can, okay, here's a funding source, we already know our need, let's package it and present it, and then we can turn around and have more success on the execution side.
Well, on that note, I totally agree with you. I like that. But I'm wondering if we can fit in there another bullet just about review and maybe sort of develop the next, some of the implementation of this, the parks master plan, right? Because there's lots of opportunities, even with Pierce Street Park, to think about what we've heard from the community and how we can maybe potentially implement in the tiny little open space opportunities that we have.
The turf, you're saying the turf analysis?
Yeah, turf
So
analysis.
that's a good thing, because we were, that's one of the things we wanted to do on the operations side, so yes, I can absolutely add
Okay,
add
great.
that to the review and provide recommendations on Parks Recreation Open. So
Yeah, just like a
third bullet under.
third bullet master plan or whatever we called it, I forget.
Was it turf analysis?
No, not turf analysis. I'm actually talking about bigger picture. We just went through the recreation
Right, okay.
planning process, so I'm just thinking there's other opportunities to do multi-use courts or whatever else. If there's some way to encapsulate that, just that continued effort to, do you have a concern about that?
So I had a thought on that.
Okay.
I would say, yes, I would say the appropriate place would be to include that in the CIP, because we're going to come and do a CIP, and we're planning to do a more formalized update of the CIP, and that to me is more of a project where we would hire an architect and have more of a established budget.
Yeah.
And that would be something that maybe once it gets into the CIP and we program it, then we would put it on here.
But how do we even determine what we'd want to do unless we?
So I think that's where I'm looking at the presentations around park operations and maintenance, and that brings in the master plan, and that would be our priorities, because are we going to put our effort into that or another thing, and that's where we would make those trade-offs.
Oh, I guess I just meant more like big picture decision-making, because I feel like I don't know if this is the right time to discuss this. I don't want to make this meeting go long, but I just want, if we're talking about what we're going to, is this like something that we're kind of declaring what we're going to work on right now? Is this sort of a work plan?
This is more of like, so in my mind, what we would do, since to follow the guidelines here, they are only looking at things that are tied to the strategic plan. So one of the things I would say is what we would submit to council, we would take the first bullet off of regular staff presentations and the last bullet, because those ones, the only thing in our bailiwick that fits what's in the strategic plan right now is the street tree management plan. That's not to say that.
I see.
I think
Okay, got it.
At our level,
Okay.
absolutely, yes, that's something I think we're all.
We can just talk about that
We
later.
can talk
We don't
about
need to
it,
do it in
and
this mode. Totally, got it.
This isn't the venue for
Sure.
that.
Yeah,
I'm saying the CIP is the venue where we can scope it out and say, this is what we want to look at.
Okay.
And we can put it in there, budget it, assign a project manager, and actually get it done.
Okay.
And I think that's been one of the struggles where, in the past, where we wanted to do things, but it doesn't get ingrained in the execution side.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
Great.
So-
Thank you.
One question I had is, the third portion there, prospective upcoming work items furthering the city council strategic plan goals. It sounds like you're saying the only thing we do that directly ties to that is the street trees, which would include the management plan, but also the removal applications. But you have all these other things listed there. So did you say that you're going to remove most of those when you submit it?
That's where I said I went a little off script, because I'm still trying to kind of get the feel of the commission and what we're going to do, and this is my attempt of laying out what I think is sort of a reasonable cadence of communicating with the council on our commission here on different things that then we can, that roll up into recommendations for projects, recommendations for, whatever.
Okay, so these seems like sort of like the things to focus on for next year is kind of what yeah. So with that in mind, I was looking at our work plan that's on the website, and there's a lot of things we have already addressed, which is fantastic, and there's a few things we haven't really talked about for quite a while. And then one of them that's in the Parks Master Plan that I was wondering if it's when that would get agendized, or would that be coming from city council or from our initiative, would be the part in our work plan where it says to provide input on the update for the Parks Master Plan for inventory and policies on the relocation and improvements of existing public and private memorials, honors, and other installations. Because that was part of an inventory was done, but we haven't really seen it. And
I am not, so as you read it, I remember that's in the plan, in the master plan. That's something that I personally, I haven't really focused on that piece of it. I can check in with,
if you could ask
Rec and see.
with Rec and maybe Nicole.
And let me reread that part of the master plan to see what the direction is on that.
Okay.
So
Okay, great.
I've been more focusing on the structural part of.
Yeah.
Maybe a different way to organize it, because if this is a response to the work plan or kind of like an update on how we did on the work plan this year, like.
It's not necessarily a response to the work plan.
Okay.
I think the idea is to maybe streamline the work plans a little bit more and focus it on because I think this was I thought was a pretty unwieldy work plan, and I think we have foundational documents such as the master plan to work from, and I think we would lean on that, plus the presentations on, I think one of the issues we probably want to start talking about is replacement of play structures at the parks. Those are getting a little old, and we're having trouble finding parts when things break, so that's something, what do we want to replace it with? Is a like replacement. So through our discussions at these regular presentations, plus the foundational documents, I think we'll have plenty of project ideas and things to do.
Okay.
So I think this was more of things that are tied more to the strategic plan.
Okay. So what are we responsible for in terms of the work plan? Like it doesn't sound like we really want to create a new one anymore.
At this point, I don't think there is, and I'm
Okay.
I'm kind of, again, feeling this as everyone else is through this new process, so.
Okay.
And that might change going forward, but
I would just want to make sure that no other advisory group is creating a work plan, because it says in here that they make one all advisory groups make one at the end of the 2-year term and create a status report of their work.
everyone's doing this. In fact,
Okay.
I
Okay.
was at the Transportation Commission meeting last week, and I was struggling with this, and then I saw what they did, and I'm like, okay, I got it now.
Okay.
This
This is the.
this is the new one.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we need to move?
Should we, well, we go to public comment, or?
Yeah, right. Public comment?
No public comment.
Then, any more questions? There's nothing for us to act on, it's just for our information.
Yes,
It's
so
approved.
so
It's approved.
if we're fine with this, and, what I'll do is update the couple of things around the attendance and pull off these things that aren't related to the strategic plan. Then it's going to get submitted to council. It'll be included on the consent calendar in, I think, the first meeting in January, which I think is the 15th. I think the first meeting will be canceled, since it's, I think, whatever day it is, the first or second day of the year.
Okay, so I move to approve the document with those recommended modifications.
I second.
Commissioner Abbott?
Yes.
Commissioner Chang Frank?
Yes.
Commissioner Chin?
Yes.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes.
Commissioner Sainberg?
Yes.
And Chair Kent?
Yes,
Thank you.
and there's no subcommittee report on flex courts. Future agenda items?
The big one we have for next, I'm sure there'll be other things going on. We have the street tree management plan consultant's going to come and do a presentation, so I think that'll be I think that'll be a pretty big meaty agenda item. I don't think we have one. We do normally have January tree removals. I don't think we're going to have it at this point. Just staff will be out, John will be out of the office. So, and I don't think we have, I think we might have one, but it could wait till the next meeting.
I just have a request, and so it'd be really helpful if, like, the attachments went up at the same time as the agenda. I know you all work really hard, and I've served on a board where, like, that request was made of us, and we just had to, like, over a few months, like, we reorganized ourselves to really, like, hit that deadline. So I just would request, because then when I sit down once to prepare on Monday, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, there's something else I missed, and then, so that every day something new goes up. So that's kind of how it affects us, and so just request that that effort be made.
Yeah, so just my thoughts on this. I think, so if there really isn't a specific requirement. We really try to do this, but, we have multiple people working on it, and it's civil. We do really try to get things up as quickly as we can. I would say, in my mind, when we have street tree issues, that to me is the one where we'll have the most focused in getting it up early. I think some of these other presentational items, particularly if it's just an informational, that one may not be, because it's less, there's no action on it. It's just more of an informational. So we try. There's everyone here working on it has many other things that they're working on as well. So again, we do our best, but it'd be hard to commit to a specific time.
I would second that, particularly when there's some design input requested. It's helpful for us to get it as soon as possible, but also to get the word out if there's certain interest groups that would really, for example, well, pickleball is pretty obvious. If pickleball's on the agenda, it's going to be about that. But for example, Pierce Street Park, it wasn't clear to me whether or not the bike path would be on this part of the agenda. So if it was going to be on the agenda, then in the presentation, then there's all sorts of people that would want to have input on that. It turned out it wasn't part of the presentation.
So I think we can maybe handle that, because to clarify, like, for us, the agenda title and the description is, in our mind, it was limited to the Prop 68 projects that we've already discussed and scoped. So that, we're happy in the course of the discussion to expand it a little bit, but that was the main focus. But clearly, if we were going to discuss the bike path, we would agendize that and have a description.
And can we help the public a little bit by maybe giving some more detail in the agenda item?
Yeah, we can that we can absolutely do. It's a lot of these presentations, that's I absolutely know Joy was probably making tweaks up to the last moment.
Up to an hour before the presentation, which is why she put them on your desk so that you can have them.
I mean, I would say maybe you can't plan for that, but in a case where it's not something urgent, because I know with the projects you have to present to keep it moving, but if it's something more informational, we could even wait till the next month where we can get the information earlier. Does that make sense? Like,
or one of the things that I would think too is if it's because a lot of it's surprising how after this meeting, how quickly, the agenda's due, and then we put things in. Oh yeah, we can get, and we run out of time. My sense is we will do our best to get it up there, and if we don't get it up in time, and there's like a meaty item that we need to, that you want information on and whatnot, we always discuss it and then make a decision to put on the next agenda and have, virtually the same presentation with maybe more questions and more, we can hold it over to the next.
not ideal.
Not ideal.
For time purposes, but yeah.
Yeah, and again, we try our best.
We know you do a lot. We get it. I get it, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
find,
think I think just for public process, and there's always that concern, even if the outcome's what they don't like, then they complain about the process, so it's nice to
Oh,
just, you know that.
I feel that in so many ways.
when Shemaya, when you asked me to review the agenda, and all I have to do is basically just proofreading it, because there's nothing really to review. That's so I second that. Okay, so any other future agenda items people want to?
Just a quick question. If a member of the public wanted to request an item on the agenda, would they just email that email that's on the website? Do we do that?
Usually they email the Parks and Rec email, and if they have a question, I usually respond and get them the information that they're requesting.
But like, what if they wanted to request an agenda item? Like, because they wanted to present to us, for example?
Like ahead of the meeting?
Ahead of the
So I think what we would do is, someone that we can email it, or coming up and, come to a meeting and public comment and say we want to agendize something.
Okay.
We would, depending on what it was, we would try to accommodate it.
I see. Thank you.
Just to reiterate, so the tree management plan will be presented next month?
Next month.
1/11, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, we're closing that agenda. Next meeting is January 11th, and that's the big item, tree management plan. And any more comments? We'll adjourn.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.